Hey guys, Dustin with the PPC Pros, just doing this quick video because a gentleman in one of our AdWords groups on Facebook asked about a client with a large brand campaign. So we have clients that, especially with e-commerce, may have a lot of marketing that they're doing, social media, they're maybe doing direct mail, they're doing TV, radio, and sometimes they're very established brands that get a lot of brand traffic. In some cases, though, clients have a large brand campaign just because there's a bit of a research process in searching for their product or service online. So if it's a high ticket item, if it's an item that requires some, technical know-how, think about like hosting or software or electrical conduit or something that requires a bit of research and also maybe even going back and looking at what the application is that you're going to need it for, that can increase the research time. So in instances like that, when we have a client that has a large brand campaign, one of the biggest problems that people face is usually they see something like we're looking at right now. So this is a client account where our brand campaign spent $80 and it generated $14,600. Now that's a great thing, right? I'm not complaining about that. But we're spending $80 out of a total of about $10,000 so far this month. And you can see we've generated in total $44,000. And this $80 is getting credit for a third of that, right? 14,000 and change. So when you're going to optimize, what happens is if you're not able to see that research process in AdWords, then it's very difficult to optimize for it. And what happens is the rest of the path that started the customer's journey to finding out about the brand gets no credit. And so you don't know whether you should be, pulling bids from that section of the account, pushing on them. You don't know what's working, what isn't. And what happens to a lot of account managers, unfortunately, is they start to pull back. So for example, if this shopping campaign, and I'll show you how you can see some of the stats for your particular account, but if this shopping campaign, if people are clicking here once or twice, doing research about this particular client's product, and then after they figure out, okay, right, this client is the one that I want to buy from, just doing a search for that client's brand and then converting there, the way Google's default attribution model works, which is the last ad click, it means that the brand campaign, as you're seeing here, gets all the credit. So even though people have clicked here 2 or 3 times, they've spent 4 or 5 or 6 days looking for information. Maybe they've seen our organic, they've seen our paid ads, they've seen a bunch of other stuff. All the credit goes here. And so this is something that makes it very difficult to optimize. So I want to show you what we've done recently with Google's new attribution settings that they allow us to use to help combat this. So if you look right here, the last 30 days, as I mentioned, we've generated about $14,000 in conversion value. We've made this change in the beginning of March, and typically this number would have been much higher. We might have seen, $20,000 or maybe, $22,000 of brand attributed conversion value, which just means there's just less to optimize for everywhere else, right? With the brand campaign, you're typically limited by volume. There's not really much you can do with it. I mean, our click-through rate's 36%, right? I mean, you're probably not going to get a whole lot higher. You can't really throttle or pull back in brand. So I want to show you what to look for and how you can update your settings for attribution and what that all means, so you can start to see if shopping's generating clicks that lead to a conversion later on in brand. You can start seeing some of that conversion value go to those campaigns. So what you want to do is just go ahead and pop into your search attribution settings. Now I'm going to start here because this is a way to tell how often this is happening. And so sometimes when we do an audit for an account, for example, we had one that we took on a few months ago, and the last agency that they work with could not identify why over time revenue just kept going down and down and down. And it's the exact same reason I've already alluded to, is they were looking at, let's say, shopping, and they're seeing, wow, this isn't doing as well, let's pull back, not realizing how much this campaign was driving the brand campaign. And so what happened is over time they couldn't understand why this is happening. I'm going to show you what we looked at to be able to identify that we know that this was starting to happen. So if you go into search attribution, one of the reports that comes in really handy to look at is your path length. So there's some good data here. We won't get into all the details. For right now, path length is what we're talking about. And path length is pretty self-explanatory. I'm just going to add a little bit more time here. Basically, path length tells you how many clicks or impressions before a conversion. And I like to use a little bit longer history window just because you get better data. You can even increase your date range here if you wanted. We'll just leave it as is for right now. But what this tells me is that if I'm looking at a 1.59 ad click per conversion ratio, it means 59% of the time people are only clicking once before they convert. So that tells me that there's about 41% of the time people are clicking more than once. And you can see that right here. The numbers aren't exactly the same, but you can see 65% of the time they're clicking once in this particular date range and period. And then, 2 through 10 clicks are happening for the other, let's just call it 35% for the sake of easy math. So that tells me that I'm not able to see, for the most part, at least one additional click, if not more, in half of this conversion data. So we're missing it. So one way to make an adjustment in attribution to account for this, really simple. What you want to do is you want to go to conversions, and in this particular case, we'll go to purchase of a product, and you want to use, in most cases, a position-based attribution model. I'm not going to get into tit for tat on should we use this or time decay or linear or whatever. The point of it is I like position-based, and I'll tell you why. Let me just hit the edit settings and we can look at the Google definition. But basically what position-based does is what we would have always hoped for in a client's account with a large brand campaign. It gives 40% of the credit to each of the first and last click in a path. So for example, and it also gives 20% to the other clicks. So if there's 3 clicks in a path, the very first click, let's just say it happens in the shopping campaign, that's going to get 40% of the credit for that conversion, which means it'll show 0.40 conversions, plus it'll get 40% of the conversion value. If there's a second click in the middle, it'll get 20%. If there's 2 clicks in the middle, it'll divide the 20% in half, so they'll each get 10. And then that last click in the path gets the other 40%. So before, if we had, let's just say, 2 clicks in a path, and one was shopping, one was brand with last click attribution, which is the default, brand is going to get 100% of that conversion value. So if we made $1,000, brand gets all $1,000 of it. In this particular scenario, if it's just 2 clicks, then they'll divide it. If it's 3 clicks, then they'll divide it. The first click will get $400 worth of revenue value. Brand would get brand, which is the last click, will get $400, and the middle click or clicks would divide the other 200. And so this gives us a lot more clarity into the entire path. So this is what we've been doing, especially for clients with larger brand campaigns, but really any client that has a research process, it can be helpful for. Sometimes when you're looking at the click path that we just looked at a minute ago, it may not be 1.59, it might be 1.1, 1.2. So then it's only really affecting 10 to 20% of your conversion data, which is really, you could live with it, right? But the way we look at it here is if we can get a little bit of an extra edge and see more data, and it takes 0 extra time, why not, right? So this is what we've been doing to help counter the, I guess you can call it the brand blindness, right? Where you're just seeing the brand stats. And I hope this has been helpful. If you have any questions, just go ahead and comment, and I'll do my best to answer them in a timely manner. Thanks for watching. Talk to you later.